In the Philippines, where the number of English speakers has always been high, 47% of Filipinos are considered competent in English, meaning they can think, understand, write, and speak the language. 80% of Filipinos understand both spoken and written English. 69% can write in English, and 55% can speak it. Additionally, despite the high ranking of the Philippines in terms of English proficiency, it is undeniable that there is still a rampant issue regarding how Filipinos perceive their fellow countrymen who are not fluent in the English language. I want to address an important issue today regarding the education system in our country. I want to hold this debate because I feel that it is crucial to express my concerns about how the current educational system operates. As someone who hails from the province, the Bicol region, I believe that it is vital for us to have an inclusive system that accommodates the needs of all learners regardless of their backgrounds. Do you have anything to say?
Well, I can say that I completely agree. The shift towards a more inclusive educational system is crucial because it acknowledges and celebrates the diverse languages and cultures we have. It's important because it doesn't just benefit students from the cities, but it also helps those from the provinces feel more engaged and confident in their learning. When we incorporate different languages and cultural perspectives into our lessons, we're creating a learning environment that's relevant and meaningful for everyone. Keep in mind that many non-fluent English speakers come from provincial areas, and they often lack the resources to improve their knowledge. And by embracing this inclusivity, we're enriching everyone's educational experiences.
I understand that there are major differences in development throughout the Philippines, and it's essential to recognize these differences. However, the harsh reality is that most individuals living in the provinces are often lacking in intelligence, as we all know. With globalization happening right now and cross-cultural communication being so important, it's hard to see how these individuals can fully participate and engage in the global landscape when, in the first place, they find it difficult to communicate in a language that is crucial for international interactions. Okay, class, so today we're going to discuss scholarly.
Miss, ano pong ibig sabihin ng scholar?
Not now, you'll just embarrass yourself. Why don't you speak English like your classmates? People from the province are uneducated and can speak proper English. I've met a few who struggled with English, so you must all be like that.
Objection. I'd like to address the claim you've made, as it unfairly generalizes everyone from the province based on just a handful of interactions. It's important to recognize that many individuals from these areas are educated, articulate, and fully capable of using English effectively. For instance, take the renowned Filipino filmmaker Kidlat. You know Kidlat? He hails from Baguio in Benguet and is fluent in English. In fact, he graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. He is just one example that shows how diverse and accomplished individuals from the province can be. Aside from that, a recent study from Bicol region examined the English language skills of graduate students. It revealed that most were at the intermediate level of communicative competence and scored upper intermediate on standardized proficiency tests. Do you believe that? This demonstrates that people from the provinces can achieve strong English skills and challenges the stereotype that non-fluent English speakers lack the ability to excel in the language.
I completely agree with my partner over here. I would like to also add some few evidences to support that. Here, take a look at this study. It is a recent study on senior high school students, and they found that those who face linguistic discrimination due to their English proficiency experience negative effects such as lower self-confidence and increased anxiety in class participation. This highlights that the issue isn't just about language skills, but the prejudice students found the provinces that they endure. Aside from this, here's another one. While urban areas like NCR do have higher literacy rates, a survey in Isabela showed that senior high school students there challenged the stereotype of struggling with English. Many reported a positive attitude towards the language, emphasizing its importance for their future careers. This demonstrates their motivation and capability, proving that talent exists beyond urban centers. And lastly, here's another one. Take a look at this. A study at CEU or Centro Escolar University in Manila compared the social adaptation and academic performance of students from rural and urban areas. Interestingly, while both groups had similar social adaptation skills, rural students outperformed urban students academically, with a higher percentage of rural students achieving a 2.0 grade or better. And overall, the findings suggest that rural-based students excel in academics compared to their urban counterparts.
Now that you know, I hope that you won't take us with prejudice next time.
Given all the facts you've shared, do you honestly think it would be easy to change the curriculum just because of past petty negative experiences? Reforming an established curriculum is a complex task that goes beyond personal grievances. It requires careful planning, input from various stakeholders, and consideration of many factors that I'm not really sure you've thought about. Now, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. If we do agree that a change is necessary, we need a clear plan for how to implement it effectively. What strategies do you think or suggest for making that happen?
That is a very good question. We believe that workshops, community involvement, and teacher training are programs. They are key strategies. And we can start by doing a needs assessment through surveys of local teachers, parents, and community leaders to determine the gaps in the teaching methodology and language requirements. Depending on these findings, we can then create a specific workshops that can be structured targeting bilingual teaching methods and the inclusion of local culture into the lessons. So for example, through the songs and folklore, strong community and partnerships are also important. So for instance, building relationships with local storytelling groups to produce bilingual storybooks.
In addition to workshops, resource materials such as bilingual lesson plans and flashcards needs to be created and disseminated. In-depth teacher training programs need to be instituted, including intensive camps where teachers rehearse bilingual instruction under the guidance of experts. Pilot programs need to be initiated in targeted schools to pilot and hone the approach, with ongoing feedback from teachers and students.
Lastly, an acquaintance of mine, Afzal and Hussein, did a study in 2020, and they suggested that community involvement is vital in learning. So by hosting events such as Bilingual Education Day, one of my proposed programs, and creating a regional committee will aid in maintaining and growing the activities and ensuring that they remain responsive to the needs of both the teachers and the broader community.
How will the implementation of these proposed changes align effectively and address the competencies and educational standards set forth by the Department of Education? In what ways do you expect these modifications to enhance learning outcomes and ensure that students are equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge as mandated by DepEd guidelines?
Well, that is a very good question. So thank you for asking that. Well, our plan includes that the inclusion of local languages in the curriculum does not replace English instruction, but it it supports and enhances it. Our suggested bilingual model is very much aligned with the Department of Education competencies, since it guarantees that students learn required English skills in both English and in their native languages without sacrificing any of them. By making core ideas available in students' own languages, we establish a deeper intellectual foundation, resulting in greater recall, richer comprehension, and enhanced performance in all areas. This methodology is entirely aligned in DepEd's vision of raising functionally literate, culture-based, and global competitive learners.
Particularly in courses such as Araling Panlipunan and Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao or ESP, the inclusion of local languages will enable students to comprehend intricate social concepts, values, and national identity more effectively by relating lessons to their everyday experiences in their culture. This enhances critical thinking and values formation as mandated in DepEd's K-12 curriculum guide. In the meantime, science and mathematics shall remain to be taught mostly in English, but with the support through the local language during the initial stages, especially grade 1 to grade 3, to guarantee understanding of the concept. As the students advance towards the higher grades, English will progressively become the primary language of instruction for these subjects, consistent with the gradual language transition approach under the mother tongue-based multilingual education or MTB-MLE approach. In English and Filipino subjects, bilingual teaching will enhance language skills through reading, writing, and speaking exercises, specifically to meet DepEd's learning standards. Evaluations will also be designed to test competencies in English and the local language where necessary in order for students to meet targeted performance indicators.
Yes. However, what specific methods or criteria can we use to effectively assess and quantify the success of this particular approach in achieving its intended outcomes?
Thank you for that question. We can utilize existing methods in our curriculum, such as the National Assessment Test or NAT and the National Career Assessment Examination or NCAI. This can be utilized as effective tools for measuring educational outcomes. These assessments give us a clear picture of how students are performing in different language contexts. It allows us to see how well they're mastering the curriculum in both English and Filipino. By looking closely at the result from this test, we can gain valuable insights about the effectiveness of our bilingual education system. They also help us spot where students are excelling and where they might need a bit more support in their language skills. Plus, by keeping track of trend over time, we can really gauge the impact of our teaching strategies on language proficiency and their overall academic success.
Can implementing this approach truly and effectively address the complex issue of socio-economic inequality within our society, considering the various factors that contribute to this disparity, like access to education? What specific mechanisms or strategies would be necessary to ensure that this initiative not only provides temporary relief, but also creates lasting change that helps disadvantaged communities?
Well, that's a very good question. Implementing this approach can certainly make a difference in addressing socio-economic inequality, but its success largely depends on how well it is executed. For it to have a lasting impact, we need to consider the various factors that contribute to inequality. Effective strategies could include investing in education and vocational training programs, specifically designed for underserved communities. I believe that the youth are the hope of our nation. Thus, empowering the educational system for Filipino students in both urban and rural areas can be a significant step towards achieving this equality. By equipping young people with skills in both their native language and in English, we are providing them with the tools they need to succeed in a competitive global environment.
Having listened to both arguments, it is clear that the said bilingual inclusive education reform supports DepEd guidelines and resolves the underlying problems of inequality and discrimination in languages. The affirmative has aptly proven that mainstreaming local languages reinforces understanding, upholds cultural pride, and leads to global competencies.